Welcome to Echoes from the Basement, an X-Files podcast. I'm your host, Alice, and each week I revisit a classic episode of The X-Files while sharing my take on the strange and mysterious adventures of Agents Scully and Mulder. And who knows, I might even make a believer out of you. Hey everybody, how's it going? Happy Wednesday again. What's everybody's plans for the weekend? I will be dog sitting 2 little dogs, and I'm very excited for it. But that's kind of it for my week, and I sadly have to go outside and mow the lawn once again. But let's get into it. We're on episode 16, Young at Heart. We start off at the Tashmu Federal Correctional Facility in Pennsylvania in 1989. We find ourselves inside of this prison. A man in a wheelchair escorts himself to his bunk. We then see that he notices an empty bed. The prisoner starts to hear screaming from a distance. He goes to investigate. He goes down this long hallway, and the screams continue to get louder. The prisoner is starting to panic. We can kind of see it in his face. He continues slowly to move down the hallway, wondering what is in store for him. He opens the door and finds a doctor with blood across his surgical mask and a huge needle in his hands. The prisoner enters the room and asks in disgust, "What are you doing to Barnett?" The doctor replies, "Excuse me? What are you doing to Johnny?" the prisoner states. We see a body laying flat on the operating table. Trigger warning, Johnny's hand is missing. He's the man that's laying on this table. The doctor sternly says, "Just go back to your ward. There's nothing you can do for Johnny. Essentially nothing to see here. Your friend is dead." The prisoner looks confused and says, "I heard Johnny screaming. He's not dead." The doctor hastily picks up a scalpel, and then, trigger warning, the doctor stomps over to the prisoner, sticks the scalpel right up to his throat, and repeats, "John Barnett is dead. Isn't that right?" The prisoner nods his head in agreement, fearing for his life. The two men turn to go their separate ways, and the doctor mentions that the other prisoner needs to leave. The inmate turns around for one last second and sees Johnny's lifeless eyes staring back at him. The doctor continues to say that there is nothing to see here, but Johnny's eyes stare at the other prisoner all the way into his soul. We think that Johnny is dead, but he blinks. He blinks at the other prisoner called Crandall. The door shuts behind the inmate in the wheelchair, and we see Johnny blink one last time. We're now located in Washington, D.C., present day. It's a rainy day. Scully is exiting out of a car with Mulder right by her side. The two agents are running over to a jewelry store that was just robbed. Scully tells Mulder, "I'm not sure why exactly we're here." Mulder states that this is a federal crime, and an old work colleague from the violent crime section has called me here and requested our help. Now they're inside the jewelry store. We see that CSI crime scene investigators are sweeping the jewelry cases for even a shred of evidence. Scully's probably thinking, finally, a normal crime where we can just do our jobs. Mulder chants the name Reggie, and we see a man approaching Mulder and shaking his hand. He then introduces Agent Scully to Richie Purdue, a previous friend of Mulder's. Scully asks, "Well, what happened here?" Purdue states that a lone gunman, trigger warning, killed a salesgirl and robbed this store. The strange part was that he killed the girl after she filled the bag full of money. Mulder asks, "Have you guys found any evidence yet?" Purdue states, "Nothing yet, but we have found something odd." Reggie keeps repeating to Mulder that what he's going to show Mulder is going to blow his mind. I'm not really sure if that's entirely possible because Mulder has seen a lot of stuff. Purdue hands Agent Mulder a bag. Agent Mulder then looks inside and is shocked. Scully asks, "Well, what's in the bag, Mulder?" He replies, "I see why you called me." He then states, "What about witness descriptions, Purdue?" Agent Purdue says, "White male, 5'11" to 6 feet. He was wearing a black ski mask. Mulder is shocked. His mouth is wide open in disbelief. Mulder then mutters to Perdue that it's Barnett. Perdue replies, "It can't possibly be him." Scully looks on in confusion as Mulder and Perdue are talking in some sort of code that she just doesn't have the key to. She then asks, "Who is Barnett?" They kind of all stare at each other, debating whether or not they want to tell Scully who this man is. Mulder explains when he first joined the FBI, Barnett was his first case. This criminal was robbing places left and right and getting away with it. Scully and Mulder continue walking. Barnett went on to kill 7 people. Mulder states that he was freshly new to the FBI at the ripe age of 28, and Perdue was his mentor. Mulder had a theory that Barnett had an inside connection, which was an employee inside the armored car company. This employee would tip Barnett off when large sum of cash came to the bank. Mulder goes on to say that he was half right on this theory. The FBI and Mulder planted bogus bills and set a trap, but it ended up backfiring because Barnett was 2 steps ahead of them. He hands a note to Scully. She reads, "Fox can't guard the chicken coop." Then asks Mulder, "So you never caught Barnett?" Mulder replies, "Well, we actually did, but an agent died because of me." "And what happened to Barnett?" asked Scully. "He was convicted of armed robbery and was sentenced to 340 years. The judge promised me that Barnett would wither away and die in prison," said Mulder. Scully follows up with the question, "Do you think he escaped then?" Which is, I believe, a logical follow-up question. Mulder replies, "Barnett died in prison 4 years ago." Now we're at FBI headquarters. The note Mulder received is being analyzed by another agent. Mulder asks, "What do you think?" The handwriting analysis, her name is Henderson. She says, "Well, Mulder, you just brought this note in a couple of seconds ago. I can't really tell you anything right now." Mulder says, "Well, can you at least try?" Henderson goes on to say that the ink is fresh. It's been written in the last 48 hours using a ballpoint pen. The person is right-handed and was sitting down at the time of the note writing. Mulder angrily states, "Does this match Barnett's?" Henderson says, "I would say it is him, but I'm only 95% sure. The handwriting is sloppy and some of the letters are just too heavy." Mulder asks, "Could it have been traced over an old note?" Henderson's, "Yes, but whoever did this, they must be good." We're watching some surveillance footage on a TV screen. We see a man with a hostage climbing out of an armored truck. Perdue points at the screen and says, "That's Barnett. We found him at an airport warehouse, but then everything kind of went downhill. Barnett took the driver out of the truck and made him a hostage." We see Scully watching the video, asking where Mulder is. Perdue points and says he went behind Barnett, who didn't notice him. Scully asks, "Did Mulder have a clear shot?" Perdue said, "Yes, he does, but he didn't take it. He didn't because the hostage was so close to Barnett, it would go against FBI policies." Perdue sighs and he stares at the screen, kind of muttering that Mulder could have saved a life, or maybe even 2. I wonder if this is Mulder's lore onto why he doesn't follow the rules and just kind of does his own thing. Perdue goes on to say that Barnett eventually just started shooting. We see in the video that Barnett, trigger warning, shoots an agent. We then see that Mulder shoots Barnett twice in the shoulder and in the hand. Perdue says Mulder did shoot Barnett, but only after the criminal shot an agent and the driver. Mulder never forgave himself. His testimony at the trial was something to never forget. Scully states that makes sense of why the judge sentenced Barnett for such a long term. Perdue eerily says, "I will never forget when Mulder climbed down from the witness stand, Barnett staring daggers at him and whispering to Mulder, 'I will get you.'" Perdue says that he wished Mulder killed Barnett that day at the warehouse. We zoom in on Mulder on the TV screen, looking down onto Barnett's body. We see Mulder receiving a paper from the fax machine. Scully asks, "What did Henderson say?" Mulder tells Scully how she was sure that the note is from Barnett. Mulder states that the prison sent over Barnett's death certificate. It lists his name, cause of death, a heart attack, and the date, September 16th, 1989. Scully thinks that this is all just a copycat killer, but Mulder doesn't think so. The note was written in the last 48 hours with no prints. Scully says that Barnett had a ton of time in prison. Maybe he just planned it. He found an accomplice on the outside to commit all these crimes. Mulder doesn't buy that one either. Scully puts her foot in her mouth and says, "He planned to get you, didn't he?" Mulder looks annoyed. Scully admits she watched the video with Agent Purdue and that Mulder did the right thing. But Mulder doesn't think so. The agent that died had a wife and 2 kids. Mulder says if I pulled that trigger seconds earlier, that agent would still be with his family. Instead, I have a dead man robbing jewelry stores and sending me notes. In the next scene, we see some kids playing football. Mulder is watching them. One child there belongs to the deceased agent. Mulder watches the boys play for a bit, probably reminded of his past mistake, and leaves. We then see the agent walk to his car, grab his keys from his pocket, but he notices something. A folder that contains another note along with pictures of him attached while he was working the jewelry store investigation. It reads, "A hunted fox usually dies." Someone is clearly stalking Mulder. The agent turns his head back and forth looking for someone. He screams, "I'll get you, you son of a bitch," before we see him drive away. We then see someone's familiar-looking gray/dead-looking eye. We're at FBI HQ. Purdue is scanning the photos of Mulder that were left in the agent's car. He believes that someone is just messing with Mulder. Mulder suggests that this is Barnett, but Purdue insists that that man's dead. Can't be him. Mulder says, well, those pictures don't say that he's dead. Purdue keeps insisting that Barnett is dead. Mulder turns around and says, it's Barnett. Purdue says, Mulder, how could this man still be alive? Mulder says, source, dude, just trust me. I can feel it. Purdue brings up spooky Mulder and how he didn't believe it, and that Mulder was just being paranoid. Mulder angrily says, and now? Purdue replies, remember when you first came here? I was so irritated by you, and then I saw how your mind worked, and it was scary. Mulder turns away and says, I've already heard that story. Purdue, like a father, says, I'm going to tell it to you again. You let a lot of people down. They had big plans for you, and now you are becoming an embarrassment and a liability. Mulder quickly turns and replies, are you saying someone from the FBI is behind this? Perhaps. Always cover your bases, says Purdue. Scully walks into Purdue's office and hands Mulder a piece of paper. It's a copy of John Barnett's last will and testament. It states that he left whatever he had to a prisoner named Joe Cardell, the man in the wheelchair we saw before, and with instructions for his body to be cremated. The document states that Barnett's ashes were spread along the Delaware River. Also, how does that work, having your ashes poured into the sea? Don't you have to get permission, and it has to be a certain number of miles off the coast? Anyway, this only confirms what Purdue has stated, that someone is just messing with Mulder. Mulder still doesn't buy it. Why would someone kill a sales clerk just to mess with him? Mulder is working with another agent to develop a new picture of Barnett, adding weight and aging him 5 years and even putting a beard on him. Mulder flashes back into the courtroom where he is giving his testimony during the Barnett trial. The prosecutor is asking him, trigger warning, did Barnett take pleasure in his crimes and in killing people? And has he also sent notes to taunt you? Mulder replies with, yes. He liked to kill the victims. It was kind of all a game to him. The lawyer asks, what happened when you finally found Barnett? Mulder goes over the same details we heard before about the warehouse and the hostages, and that Barnett would hide inside the armored truck and that his accomplice was then held hostage, the driver. Mulder rises from the witness stand and says Barnett killed that agent out of spite. He was a man with a family. Barnett looks like he just really doesn't care. Mulder looks directly at this criminal. You shot him without any hesitation, Barnett. Trigger warning. Mulder raises his voice and states, you should die like an animal in prison, and points at Barnett. Mulder and Barnett lock eyes during the trial. Barnett whispers, I will get you to Mulder, and winks. Mulder returns back to his office, from his daydream and tells the other agent he will need numerous copies of these photos. Scully enters and says she just got off the phone with the prison. They said John Barnett died because of a heart attack. I had them send me all of his medical records. Barnett was admitted to the prison infirmary for an infection in his hand. There is no evidence of any heart attack or complications. I found on his physical that he had a clean bill of health 6 months earlier, states Scully. We're back at the prison. Scully and Mulder are meeting with Crandall, Barnett's best friend. Mulder asks if Crandall knew Barnett and how well did you know him, Mulder asks. He says, yep, I knew him. I knew him pretty well. Scully brings up that Barnett left everything to Crandall, so they must really be good friends. Mulder asks, are you aware that Barnett died from a heart attack? Crandall has a strange answer. He says, where does it say cardiac arrest on his death certificate? Scully replies. Then Crandall says, he isn't dead, is he? Scully looks at Mulder in shock. Mulder asks the million-dollar question, why do you say that? Crandall says the last time he saw his friend was in that room over there. He says, trigger warning, that the doctor chopped off Barnett's hand. Mulder says, Dr. Ridley? Yes, it was, the prisoner says, but I don't believe that Barnett was dead. Scully asks another million-dollar question. How did you know he wasn't dead? The inmate says, I saw him looking at me. I saw him blink. I'll never forget those dead eyes. We're at FBI headquarters. With this cryptic and eerie info, Scully and Mulder race back to FBI HQ. Barnett's mugshots are plastered against the wall. Mulder loads his weapon and prepares for battle. Scully innocently asks, what are we going to do? Mulder replies, well, I'm not going to sit here and wait for Barnett to send me another no. You mean Barnett's ghost, replies Scully. Mulder shoots a glance at Scully and mutters, I don't know you believed in ghosts. It's hard to believe when after hearing Crandall's story, replies Scully. The phone begins to ring. Scully answers it. She hands the phone to Mulder. The mouth on the other line says, Fox Mulder? Mulder starts to panic and says, Barnett? Scully runs to trace the call. Barnett says, you sound surprised. Mulder tries to tape the call, but Barnett says, you know you can't tape this call. It's illegal if you do not get permission. Mulder replies, what makes you think I'm taping this call? Barnett continues, I know you're tracing this call. Mulder asks, what state are you in? The criminal states the same one as you. I stood right next to you in line this morning while you were getting your coffee. Mulder denies this. A sinister laugh is heard over the phone. I know where you are. I know everything. I know where you are every day. I own you. Mulder asks, how do I know it's really you, Barnett? The voice replies, what did I say to you in the courtroom on that day? Did you ever doubt me for a second? Mulder decides to play some 5D chess and says, what did you say? Barnett replies, you're not going to keep me on the phone. Mulder shouts back, John Barnett is a dead man. Then a whisper over the phone tells Mulder he is a dead man. Mulder flatly states, I just need you to confirm who you are. The voice says, okay, you got confirmation then. The caller hangs up. Scully lost him. She asks, was it Barnett? Mulder gives some more lore that John Barnett was from New Hampshire and he had an accent. Mulder plays the tapes back. It is confirmed that the caller was John Barnett because he had an accent. The phone rings. Agent Purdue is awakened by the ringing. He answers. It's Mulder. He informs Purdue that Barnett is still alive. He tells the other agent about the interactions with Crandall, stating, John Barnett is alive. Purdue tells Mulder to go home and get some rest. Mulder continues saying something isn't right. The note from the jewelry store was written by a right-handed person. We can see a shadow slowly start to creep behind Purdue. But the prison said that Barnett's right hand was amputated. Someone, trigger warning, starts to choke Agent Purdue, and then a note is thrown on top of his lifeless body. The murderer leaves while Mulder pleads on the phone for Purdue. We're at the crime scene, Agent Purdue's home. Mulder and Scully arrive. Mulder stares at the ground, tortured by the passing of his friend. He tells Scully Purdue's wife died 6 years ago from cancer and that Purdue was working on a mystery novel that he didn't want to show Mulder. that he was the only agent Purdue trusted. Scully apologizes, but Mulder lashes out and says, I think it would have been different if I just killed Barnett that day. If only I had taken the shot. I had it. Scully tries to console Mulder, stating, we aren't sure that this is Barnett. Mulder points to the note. Scully reads, funeral for Fox's friends, then for Fox. The two agents bring the note back to Henderson. She says, fresh ink, slightly smeared and written by a right-handed person. Mulder replies, would you know if someone wrote this note with a prosthetic hand? Henderson says the suspect's handwriting is fluid and you would have to have good finger dexterity. They are probably not using a prosthetic. Henderson says that the person who wrote the first and last note are the same, though. She also states, you never found any fingerprints off those notes. If this guy wore a glove while he was writing this note, it would not be smeared like this. Mulder walks into the basement and is greeted by Scully with some new information. She says Dr. Ridley hasn't been an official doctor since 1979. His membership expired and the state of Maryland revoked his medical license for malpractice using research and misuse of a government grant. Dr. Ridley was conducting experiments on young children. Scully and Mulder travel to the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. We see the two agents are watching a video of a little girl suffering from progeria, a disorder that causes children to age at a rapid rate. A doctor is going over some details about these special cases. Trigger warning, some children live to adulthood, others become terminal at ages 6 or 7, states the doctor. They die from cardiac arrest or just of old age. We see Dr. Ridley on the screen. The doctor explained that Ridley thought he could take these children's accelerated aging and slow it down. He was great until he became out of control and wanted to begin human trials. Ridley wasn't allowed to because he never met the criteria. It was too dangerous. The doctor continues, Ridley didn't care about those kids. He talked about them as if they were lab rats. Ridley states that this is an opportunity to unlock all the secrets. When the human trials were canceled, Ridley became enraged. Scully asks, how did the doctor lose his medical license? The other doctor explains that Ridley went ahead with human trials on an outpatient basis. Scully mentions that Ridley has gone missing. The doctor states that he went to South America to continue his work. Scully and Mulder leave with this explosion of information. Scully tells Mulder, you can't reverse aging. But Mulder says Ridley has found a way. Impossible, Scully shouts back. Mulder's theory is that Ridley wanted human test subjects, which became the prisoners like John Barnett. Mulder believes that Barnett is wearing the perfect disguise, a younger face. We're at FBI headquarters. Mulder and Scully met with the agent from before who initially aged Barnett's photo. Mulder says that he wants this mugshot of Barnett to be aged backwards. They aged the picture backwards 20 years, and this picture is a completely different man. He looks younger, has more hair, and no wrinkles. Scully, on the other hand, is looking through Ridley's notes. In her report, she writes that Ridley saw aging as a disease, a condition that could be prevented or reversed in certain genes. We see someone sneaking towards Scully's home. The door creaks. Scully goes back to work. I wonder how she could just ignore that. She then decides to investigate the noise while we listen to some Elden Ring boss music. Scully reaches for her weapon carefully. She draws it and continues to investigate. Another creak. She checks the kitchen. Nothing. A knock on the door. Scully silently approaches the door while the knocking continues. She asks, who is it? The voice replies, Dr. Joe Ridley. Scully opens the door, the music intensifies, and behold, it is actually the doctor. We see someone else sneaking away into the darkness that was initially inside Scully's home the whole time. Also, how do people keep finding Scully's address? Scully and Mulder are sitting down with Dr. Ridley in Scully's living room. Mulder asks, where have you been, doctor, for the last 5 years? The doctor replies that he continued his work in Mexico, but during these last 3 years, he has spent time in Central America, mainly Belize. Mulder asks about Barnett. He says that Barnett is the only patient left who survived the experiments. Mulder replies, well, what about you? The doctor has great eyes and says that he only has a month to live. He goes on to say that he is dying from the same vascular disease that the children who have progeria are suffering from. Side effect from the experiments. Ridley states that using progeria, he reversed the aging process, but the doctor and his patients became susceptible to the same illness that the children suffer from. Mulder asks again, what about Barnett? The doctor replies, if I didn't hate that man so much, he would be my one victory. Barnett isn't dying, it's only his eyes, which didn't respond to the gene therapy. Scully asks how. Ridley explains that he changed Barnett's treatment through an unexpected find that allows Barnett to regenerate his hand. Mulder says, you grew a hand? Seriously? Ridley says, not a human hand, a salamander hand. The doctor continues to state he is an outcast in the medical community and his work has cost him everything. But he didn't care. He would one day control the world. We find out after Ridley was fired, the U.S. government sponsored his research. They financed him the whole time. We're at a local bar. Deep Throat meets Mulder, where he tries to do some damage control. Deep Throat says, I'm going to explain everything and know why you've contacted me. Everything about John Barnett is true. The government knew that Barnett has been here the whole time. Then, Deep Throat explains that the criminal stole Ridley's work. He continues, our government is trying to deal with Barnett. We want to buy the research from him. Mulder is shocked and then asks, what does Barnett want? Deep Throat says the usual money, safe haven, etc. Barnett holds all the cards. Mulder shoots back, you know this guy is a murderer, right? Deep Throat replies, we know, but this research is priceless and could benefit mankind. Back in D.C., a phone rings. It's Scully's landline. Scully emerges from the shower. She approaches Mulder at the FBI with her answering machine. She states that someone was dialing in her private code and replaying the messages. She continues, someone was in my apartment last night. Before Mulder could dismiss her, Scully states she took her answering machine to the lab and found prints on it. Whose prints, you may ask? Barnett's. The phone rings and Mulder answers. The call starts with an uncomfortable moan. The voice says, your new friend, Dr. Ridley, don't grow so attached to him. He is going to die like the rest of your friends. The man has gray eyes. One by one, your friends are going to die, says the voice. Mulder says, Barnett, you aren't that smart. The voice laughs. Then says, you aren't going to make me prove it again, are you? It will be your turn soon. Mulder says, no way. The voice sinisterly laughs and says, who's going to stop me? Mulder quickly turns to Scully and asks, what did Barnett hear in those messages? Scully says, my mom called, just wanted to say hi, and that I am meeting a friend before her recital. Mulder asks, where? We're teleported to the Janie Taylor Memorial Recital Hall, Washington, D.C. Also, are these places real that are in X-Files? Let me know in the comments. Mulder tells Scully and the other agents that they are at a disadvantage because they have no idea what Barnett looks like. Mulder says, study these faces. The agents flip through some photos of Barnett. Scully hands a map of the theater to the agents with all the exits marked. Everyone should keep an eye on Scully, says Mulder. Then he says, we want to take Barnett alive. The agents disperse. Mulder checks in on Scully. She replies, this is just the first time I'm bait. We see a woman playing the cello and Mulder approaches her. He walks down the stairs, but something is off though. A man with a slimy hand is tuning the piano. He is a younger man with gray eyes who turns to look at Mulder. The agent doesn't realize he just passed the murderer. The lobby fills with people. Mulder continues to scan for Barnett. The criminal takes a gun and puts it into his waistband. He joins everyone in the lobby. Barnett spots Scully. He pushes people out of the way to continue his evil mission. He pulls the gun from his waist and points it at Scully. She yells, gun! He fires, sending Scully flying back. Barnett takes off. Mulder runs after him. They are both in the auditorium. Barnett takes Scully's friend as a hostage. Mulder confronts his biggest regret now, replaying in real time. Barnett tells the agents to back off and Mulder tells him to also back off. Mulder and Barnett are at a standoff. The murder edges Mulder, saying, shoot, 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 what are you waiting for? What are you afraid of? You need me alive, don't you? Because I know where the research is. I could shoot this girl and you will have to live with it. The hostage struggles in Barnett's arm. Mulder points his weapon at Barnett, and he shoots. Barnett's eyes grow wide. He collapses. Scully awakens. A man asks if she's alright. More boss music playing. Scully wore a bulletproof vest. Doctors tried to save Barnett's life, while a government agent keeps asking, "Where did you hide the research?" Mulder looks on. Scully joins him. "She is fine." "What about him?" Scully asks. Mulder says 3 specialists are working on him, and the man in the suit is a CIA agent. Barnett is conscious but not talking. Scully says, "Mulder, I know what you did wasn't by the book." Mulder says, "That tells you all about the rules, doesn't it?" We are left with an image of Barnett's gecko hand. He stares at Mulder as he dies. The doctors lose him, and now he will take the research to the grave, Mulder states. Scully asks, "Where do you think it is?" We are at a busy train station. Mulder is speaking about how this research can change mankind. The camera zooms in on a locker. Scully says if that research wasn't destroyed, someone will find it. The locker is labeled 935. Mulder ends with, "I feel that this will not be the last time we hear about John Barnett." I think this episode was really good. It seems that Mulder was kind of a star prodigy at one point, but chose a life that nobody wanted for him. I wonder if he's happy with that. Do you guys believe that Mulder did the right thing? Should he have shot Barnett in the beginning or continued to follow the rules? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. This was truly interesting because we see Mulder as a rule breaker but not as a follower. I wonder if this moment impacted his whole career and kind of changed its outcome. Anyway, thanks for listening, all you truth seekers, abductees, and X-Files enthusiasts. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the show. And remember, the truth is out there. You just have to find it.